Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Mademoiselle Lina, and you can find me online at www.conjureknits.com. Today, we're here to do the weekly forecast for November 8th through the 14th, and we are going to be using the Spirit Keepers Tarot, Revelation Edition by Annabelle Wen. Before we get started, I would like to say thank you for viewing my video. And if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and click on the little bell so that you'll receive notifications of when I go live or upload new videos. I do try to stay pretty busy here on my channel. I do all 12 zodiac signs for the monthly tarot scopes. On Sundays, we have Conjure Crew with myself, Mambo Tanya, and the Black Bonnet Witch. On Mondays, I upload the weekly forecast. Every day, I do a card of the day reveal. On Wednesdays, we have the virtual book club. We are currently reading the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. It has been so much fun following Richard and Kaylin on their adventures, so you are definitely going to want to join us for that. I also pop on from time to time and do free readings, so make sure you get my notifications by clicking that little bell. Alright, I feel that I have rambled on long enough. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Card number 1. What spirit will be most present this week? And we have Nine of Swords, the Haunt. Restful sleep eludes her. She sits upright in bed, face buried in hand, in slight fetal position. The horned shadow hovering over her from behind is the haunt. Etched into the side of the figure's medieval-style bed is an astrological table of essential dignities. Starting with the top row, left to right, after the glyph for fire is Aries, then Mars, its planetary ruler, and Venus, which is exiled or detrimental in Aries. Next is Taurus, then its planetary ruler Venus, and then Mars, which is in detriment under Taurus, and so on. The backdrop is that of a crypt underneath a medieval cathedral. The three circular seals along the left column, covered by the spirit of the haunt, is, top to bottom, the first pentacle of Mars from the Key of Solomon, then Paracelsus's first zodiac seal for Gemini, and then his second zodiac seal for Gemini. To the right, first is the magic ring of Solomon from the Gosha. Below it is the glass seal of divine protection from demons, and finally, the fourth pentacle of Mercury, a magical seal used to acquire knowledge, to reveal that which is hidden, and to command the aleatory spirits. Mercury is the planetary ruler of Gemini, so its seal is placed here to amplify your personal strength and fine-tune your perceptivity. The four rectangular tablets forming the two columns of the archway are magical tablets for healing from the book of Abramlin the Mage, Book Raman 3, Chapter 18, to heal diverse maladies, with the letters written in Agrippa's celestial alphabet. Top to bottom, they are the magic square for curing disease, illness, and pestilence, tablet for curing feelings of imbalance, for healing a wound, and to cure physical bodily pains. Crowley describes the Nine of Swords imagery as a cathedral of the damned. In a moment of insomnia, the illusions cast upon the walls of the mind project outward and become your environmental reality. The endless hall of the cathedral crypt is but an illusion of space, one our sleepless figure has conjured. The nine swords, her thoughts, have created this crypt. Yet her suffering has called forth she of the earth and underworld, great one of magic, who appears here as a matron. This is mother, though not in the sense of motherhood that humans are more familiar with. This is a spiritual mother, waking from her own solace and leaving her cave to come in your moment of need, to tend to you until you fear the darkness no more. The checkered tiles on the bed with the astrological glyphs represent fate, while the checkered tiles of the floor behind her, where Mother Hecate stands, is blank, representing free will. The path into the future is unwritten. The checkered tiles are a Masonic symbol of Hermetic dualism. You've been feeling haunted and bound by your fate. Yet Hecate now approaches you, illuminating the crypt with her torch. Through the magic cast by this card on your behalf, though you're in the throes of a Nine of Swords moment, divine help is on the way. Hecate is coming. Card number 2. What is in my highest interest to make this week's priority? And we have Two of Swords, the Blind Seer. A blindfolded seer sits on a stone bench, wielding two crossed swords over her heart. The twin swords are the ego and the self. Rubido, the actualization or consummation stage in the alchemical process of realizing the great work, is associated with the archetypal nature of merging the ego with the self. Her crossed wrists form a double Vajra. One sword points in the direction of Horus or Heru, the falcon-headed sky god. The ancient Egyptians believed in a bifurcated representation of the god Horus. He was Horus the Elder, a primordial god, and he was also Horus the Younger, the sky god and son of Isis. The image of the full moon in the eye of Providence denotes the polarity of the sun, and therefore its direct presence. A full moon is when the sun and moon are at direct opposites facing each other, which is why the full face of the moon is illuminated by the light of the sun. As a sky god, Horus sees all, and thus bears witness to every injustice that is committed. Call upon Horus to avenge wrongs that have been done to you. He is the Redeemer, with the power to bring earthly salvation to humans, and so in times of dire need, petition Horus to save you from jeopardy. The hieroglyphs on the base of the falcon statue read as follows: Nehe, meaning to invoke or entreat; Aku, meaning the light, radiance, luminescence, the god of light and splendor; Heru-Abu, meaning Horus, great one of the hearts; Herimurti, meaning Horus of the two eyes, the sun and moon. The pillars and framing of this image serve to signify an open portal or gateway between worlds. The second sword points in the direction of the Lighthouse of Alexandria, built around 250 BC on the island of Pharos. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was dedicated to the savior gods, featuring reliefs and statues of the god Horus. Other records note that the lighthouse later featured statues of Triton, Poseidon, and Zeus. Standing as one of the tallest man-made structures of the ancient world, the lighthouse was constructed of pink granite, sandstone, and limestone. On either side are twin pillars reminiscent of the priestess and the chancellor's realms. The blind seer is also a threshold guardian for the priestess and the chancellor. She can also appear to prophesy an apocalyptic vision, the numerological link between Key 20, Apocalypse, and the twos. The pillars feature stylized, ornate roses, which was also featured on the hilt of the Ace of Swords. This is to represent the expression sub rosa, to convey that all that transpires here is to be kept under a cone of silence. The rose would be hung on the entranceway of rooms where an important council was being held, to convey that what would transpire during that meeting must be kept secret, and the decisions to be made therein would be kept in strict confidence. The blind seer's dress pattern is a homage to the Thoth Two of Swords. Card number 3. What do I need to be mindful of and prepare for this week? And we have Eight of Swords, the Captor. The setting is Hellenized Alexandria, when Egypt was a Roman province. The Romans pushed for Greek influences to dominate over the Egyptian in a form of cultural imperialism. In the background, to the left, stands the Great Library of Alexandria, which was not so much a single physical location and structure, but rather refers to the collection of scrolls housed in Alexandria that the cosmopolitan city became known for. The adjacent building to the right represents the museum or research institution dedicated to the Muses. In the distance is the Lighthouse of Alexandria, which appeared in the Two of Swords and Seven of Chalices. Two swords, blades downward, appear in the foreground, their formation reminiscent of the astrological glyph for Gemini. In front of the museum, off to the viewer's right side, is a statue of the Roman god Jupiter. The golden eagle in front also signifies Jupiter and Roman rule. The decanate correspondence for the Eight of Swords is Jupiter in Gemini, where Jupiter is in detriment. A woman's hands are tied by the threads of fate, ropes extending out in 4 directions. Not only are there swords surrounding her, 2 shadowy clouds grip at her skirts. A total lunar eclipse, reflecting blood red, hangs low in the skies, bearing witness to what is about to happen. The woman is Hypatia of Alexandria, upper-class daughter to the Greek scholar and mathematician, Theon of Alexandria, renowned for his commentaries on Euclid and Ptolemy. Theon of Alexandria also achieved significant advancements in his work on predicting eclipses. He personally oversaw his daughter's well-rounded and highly disciplined education. At an impressive young age, she surpassed her father's knowledge. Hypatia was born sometime between 350 and 375 AD. She was a Neoplatonic philosopher who espoused that intellect was the highest order of human reality and that our intelligence is what bears responsibility for the unfolding of events and the constructions of our material existence. Our soul is the mediator between our intellect and the material, corporeal world. Living a purified, exalted spiritual life is how intellect can dominate over base materialism. Hypatia was not only a university teacher, but she also gave free lectures to the public. She was seen in her time as a spiritual teacher and philosopher, in addition to being a mathematician, astronomer, astrologer, and scientist. Many of her students rose to prominent political seats, which resulted in her having friends in high places who would go out of their way to seek her counsel on stately matters. Her opponents grew jealous of the political power and social influence she wielded. In the early 400s, Alexandria was besieged with political turmoil. There was a fight among bishops for control over the city. Hypatia's extraordinary political influence was seen as a threat. Those in power spread word that Hypatia was a witch casting magical spells over the city's leadership, and her extraordinary gifts of intellect came from the devil. In 415 AD, Christian officials and Alexandrian laymen loyal to Cyril, the bishop then in power, attacked Hypatia, dragged her to what had been a pagan temple dedicated to Julius Caesar, which by Hypatia's time had been converted into a Christian church, stripped her naked, and stabbed her multiple times with shards of broken earthenware tiles. They blinded her, driving the shards into her eyes, and dragged her dead, naked corpse, or what remained of it, through the city streets before lighting her body on fire. In her posterity, the philosopher Hypatia of Alexandria became a symbol of human ideas, intellectualism, culture, and the humanities. Her death is a representation of the unprincipled, ambition-driven mob seeking to suppress learning and science. Feminists portray Hypatia's death as a symbol of misogyny. Pagans see it as a demonstration of the Christian institution exterminating paganism. Historians and scholars now correct these misconceptions, pointing out that more men admired and revered her than those who orchestrated her downfall, and among her students, she was as beloved by Christians as she was by her pagan pupils. By combining the cards from this week's forecast, I was able to come up with the I Ching of Kauai, taking decisive action. After a long period of tension, there will be a breakthrough. Lake, the fertile womb above the heavens, creative and innovative ideas are forming in your imagination, ready to materialize. A barter or negotiation sent upward. Heaven, fertility, and the power of creativity will then descend. Open yourself to all possibilities with full faith in the divine, and those creative and innovative ideas will indeed materialize. In the midst of the king's court, a trustworthy cry of warning. Be careful, as there may be risks ahead. Heed the warning of danger. If you take heed, the risks can be minimized. Heed the warning yourself and go forth to warn the kingdom. Your interests are not the only ones at stake in the endeavor. Be sure to warn others about the risks involved. However, no gains will be had by raising arms at this time. Tread forward decisively, but gently. Do not use excessive force. There will be gains if you proceed with your endeavor in an alternate direction. The solution will be a different path than the one initially conceived. Lake, the fertile womb ascends upward. It is the heaven. A great creative breakthrough comes to you. Take decisive action and all will go well. The sage will share the kingdom's abundance and prosperity downward to all people. When you accomplish your endeavor and attain benefits, be sure to pass on those benefits to those who have supported you. At all times, be virtuous in your decisions in compliance with the universal laws of the divine. Refrain from feeling envy or jealousy toward others. An auspicious omen for your endeavor. First line, arm and protect your toe before advancing. Otherwise, you are advancing at a disadvantage and errors that could have been avoided will be made. You advance because you are afraid if you do not go forward, the result will be failure, but at this time you are not prepared to advance. To do so would result in the outcome you fear most, failure. Arming and protecting your toe suggests watching where you are going. Do not walk a blistering journey without the proper footwear. Likewise, do not proceed with the endeavor if you are not adequately prepared for the challenges ahead. Unexpected setbacks at the beginning. Second line, crying out fearfully. In the night, there may be hidden weapons, empty threats in the dark. There is nothing to fear. You are feeling vulnerable right now and have been trying to appeal to others' sympathies. A state of stress and distress, but the endeavor will end well. Those who know of your current vulnerability may wish to bring you harm and are plotting in secret without your knowledge, but do not fear their plots. They will not succeed. Though you feel vulnerable now, acknowledgement of that vulnerability is how and why you fortify yourself and become prepared for what may come. Prepared for action, you will successfully ward off all threats. Third line, arm and protect your face before advancing. There are ominous threats ahead. The sage must be resolved. The sage must have absolute conviction in the decision to be made. The sojourner walks alone. There is rainfall like being trapped in a marsh. There are feelings of resentment. However, there is no blame. Do not reveal your purpose or intentions to others at this time. You are aware of your adversaries, but do not let them know that you are aware of their ulterior motives. Instead, to their face, show them grace. Do not disclose who you really are just yet. You must be more cunning than them and show even greater personal resolve. Do not tell people how you will act. Simply act when you are ready to act. Also, you must act alone. The endeavor is yours alone to bear and carry forth. There is no need to seek outside counsel or support. Rain is the union of heaven and earth, bringing about fertility and creativity. However, with the rain could come difficult truths. Do not let those difficult truths hold you back. Others may resent you for the actions you decide to take, but you did nothing wrong. Fourth line, no skin on your thighs. The sojourner tries and tries, many times, persistent, herded like sheep, penitence, regret, and harm. Facing a series of obstacles, but failing to learn from each failure. Continued failure due to your inability to understand what is really happening. Herded like sheep here suggests humiliation, someone who has been defeated by one who was stronger. Your own stubbornness was what brought about the defeat. There is also a sense of surrender here. Fifth line, amaranth growing on the continent. A resolute decision must be made. The sojourner must take the middle path. Only then will there be no error. In many translations, instead of amaranth, the reference is to weeds. The implication of this line is the rapid spread of inferiority that you must uproot if you are to succeed at your endeavor. Thus, translations using the reference weeds clearly convey that point. Amaranth, however, are brilliant red, pink, and purple perennial flowers that bloom in clusters, and to use the word weeds may risk oversimplifying the matter to you. You are letting others who are inferior overrun you. However, The reason you have let them overrun you is because you do not seem to be fully aware that they are weeds. There is a superficial appearance of brilliance to them, which is why you let them persist. Note that amaranth growing on the continent could also indicate rampant corruption at the highest offices in the state. Such corruption must be uprooted, or the corruption will only spread. You have to act decisively and be resolute. You have to lead with a firmer hand. You cannot let the inferior control the decisions you make. You make sojourn alone and take the middle path. 6th line, no sounding cries. At the end, there is misfortune. Without warning, the endeavor will take a turn for the worse. You failed to take decisive action. You should not rely on others and do not wait for alarms or sirens to detect pending danger. If you let your guard down and fail to take decisive action, the result will be unfortunate. You must have the confidence to trust your own instincts. All right, my lovelies. Let's take a look at the bigger picture here. Card number 1. What spirit will be most present this week? And we have the Haunt. Mars in Gemini can bring on anxiety, yet we also see the potential for great achievement, and one who will serve as a model of inspiration to others. Mars in Gemini is truth that you don't want to hear, but truth that is medicine. Challenges in the short term lead to the accomplishment of an extraordinary endeavor in the long term. In the SKT, the 9 of Swords card is enchanted, so it's not only used as divination, but will be proactive magic on your behalf in the event that you find yourself living through a 9 of Swords moment. Integrating Solomonic magic, this key immediately puts up a shield of protection against diseases and illnesses of pestilence through the magic square inscribed onto it in the event that the 9 of Swords has appeared in your reading, because that's the energies foretold, in addition to the magic square to cure physical body pains. In the event this card is detailing experiences of chronic pain or suffering. The 9 of Swords can prognosticate mental or physiological imbalance, so there's also the tablet for curing feelings of imbalance. If there is a malefic or demonic attachment nearby, the Ring of Solomon and the glass seal of divine protection from demons will activate. Pictured here are the sleepless nights that come while contemplating solutions to your problem. It's you at a difficult crossroads, hence the appearance of Hecate. She is present as mother, to cradle you in her arms and to protect you while you cry. The spirit of the haunt is scary, sure, but this is through a beneficent spirit. The haunt is compelling you to confront difficult truths. You fear this spirit not because the spirit is malefic, but because you intuit that the news the haunt will bring is not what you want to hear. When the 9 of Swords shows up in your reading, pay attention to the signs your body or subconscious is trying to send you. There is something wrong and you need to stop ignoring the signs. This is when something inside of you is aching, and it becomes real, psychosomatic. The pain is not the problem itself, but a symptom. Your inner voice is trying to communicate something to you. The vision of Hecate, Titan goddess of liminal spaces, magic, and crossroads, of Ereshkigal, goddess who can help you navigate the underworld, of Werthikau, the personification of magic and your protectress in the underworld. A divinity comes to help you face your fears, to confront that which is causing your anxiety, and because your spiritual mother is here, right by your bedside, there is nothing to fear in this momentary darkness. Scholars believe that Hecate was originally part of the Carian, Anatolian pantheon, most notably ascribed as a great mother figure. The Anatolian origins theory, however, is still in dispute. Another theory places Hecate as native to Greece, with a strong cult following in Boeotia, central Greece, where she was worshipped as a Epotnia Theron, meaning a queen of the animals, depicted as a woman with 2 animals on either side of her, sometimes seated on a throne, sometimes standing. Per Hesiod's Theogony, Zeus honors Hecate above all and gives her splendid gifts and a share of the sky, the earth, and the sea. It's further emphasized that she is very much honored by the immortal gods. Not only is she honored by the Olympians, she was honored by the Titans. Both Kronos and Zeus seem to acknowledge Hecate's importance and value, even though there aren't any specific stories of Hecate acting in any way to assist any of them during the Battle of the Gods. Rather than rule over any specific domain, Hecate seems to be an amplifier. She isn't a goddess of war, but she assists in battle when called upon. She's not a goddess of victory, though she grants victory and glory to whom she wills. She'll also help in competitions, though she isn't a goddess who presides over athletic games. When invoked alongside Hermes, she can bring prosperity and profitable commerce. Thus, her primary role, at least in the Theogony, seems to be supportive, but supportive in any domain, because Zeus granted her a share of the sky, the earth, and the sea. It might be deduced that Hecate is a mediator, but a powerful one who will always get her way. She is prayed to, and then in turn Hecate will seek out the god or goddess ruling over that domain, and persuade that deity to intervene. She can work any magic and serve any function due to her share of the sky, the earth, and the sea. Her powers are bridges into every sphere of the cosmos and into every domain. There is a spell in the Greek magical papyri for a Hecate protective charm. Take a piece of lodestone and upon it, carve a three-faced Hecate as follows. The middle face is a maiden wearing horns. The left face is that of a dog, and the right face is that of a goat. When the carving is done, cleanse the stone with natron and water. Natron is a naturally occurring salt mix of sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, that's naturally harvested from dried lake beds. Dip the cleansed stone in the blood of one who has died a violent death, and make a food offering to it. A practical and accessible modern-day equivalent to that might be to use animal blood from the butchers, such as pig's blood. Burn an incense blend of styrax resin, myrrh resin, sage, frankincense, and a fruit pit. Then recite the following spell over the stone. Hail, goddess, and attend your epithets. I burn for you this spice, O child of Zeus, dart shooter, heavenly one, goddess of harbors, who roam the mountains, goddess of crossroads, O nether and nocturnal and infernal, goddess of dark, quiet and frightful one. O you who have your meal amid the graves, night, darkness, prod chaos, necessity. Hard to escape are you, your Moira and Erinyes, torment, justice, and destroyer. And you keep Kerberos in chains, with scales of serpents are you dark, O you with hair of serpents, serpent-girded, who drink blood, who bring death and destruction, and who feast on hearts, flesh-eater, who devour those dead untimely, and you who make grief resound, and spread madness, come to my sacrifices, and now for me do you fulfill this matter. Having petitioned and brought yourself into the presence of the goddess Hecate, speak your wish or intention. This drawing is deeply sentimental to me. It reminds me of my girlhood, when I'd wake up from nightmares and my mother would rush to my bedside. She never dismissed my fears when I told her there were monsters lurking in the dark. Instead, she taught me how to stay calm, centered, and how to call upon higher divine forces to help me whenever I was scared. Real or imagined, I don't even think that matters, that my mother always believes in me, that she always takes my side, is what I took with me into adulthood. To me, the deepest underlying cause of a 9 of Swords moment in your life is not feeling believed, not feeling validated. I don't think we as humans are so weak as to crumble just because there's been suffering. The suffering is amplified and made nearly unbearable when no one recognizes our suffering, when we don't feel seen. It's crying out in fear in the middle of the night, and there is no one rushing to your bedside to hold you. To know there will always be someone who rushes to your bedside when you're scared is to have all the inner strength it takes to combat suffering. Card number 2. What is in my highest interest to make this week's priority? And we have the blind seer. In Egyptian mythos, eyes weren't just for seeing, but were sources of action and causation. Thus, one message coming through is to take pause. You need to think this one through. Don't act or make a decision in haste. Two competing or oppositional ideas are in equipoise. One balances out the other. Waite notes that one divinatory meaning of this card is concord in a state of arms. Among the keys from the suit of swords, which are classically attributed to suffering, the two of swords may be the most positive, though favorable readings of this card must be considered in a qualified manner. Wait, nevertheless, there is a sentiment of tenderness present in your situation. There's courage and supportive friendships. The blind seer helps us navigate the stalemate between the ego and the self. The twin swords or twin paths form the cross that you bear. You have yet to attain the realization you need to make an intelligent, reasoned decision. So take the time to look inward. Arrive at an inner peace and restore a sense of calm before you proceed any further. However, where I described the twin swords in the blind seer as the ego and the self, Crowley describes them as silence and chastity, making reference to Harpocrates, the Greek god of silence, derived from the Egyptian icon of Horus as a child. The esoteric attribution for the Two of Swords is peace, with the implication that it is one born from tension and halted conflict. The context of this peace is mutually assured destruction, and so you make peace with your opposition because that's the only way to ensure your own security. The thesis of the Two of Swords: when faced with an impossible choice between two ways, the best course to take is always the third. The pictorial reference to sub rosa here would also be construed as an omen to keep your decision-making to yourself. Don't disclose what's on your mind to others just yet. Keep it secret, or you might jeopardize the balance. Card number 3. What do I need to be mindful of and prepare for this week? And we have the Captor. The title for the spirit of this card was intentional. This is the captor, not the captive. In contemporary times, it has become far too popular for every one of us to paint ourselves as the victim and not as the perpetrator. This Eight of Swords asks us to confront our role as the captor and not as a captive. Hypatia is looking straight at you, the onlooker, because you are part of this landscape. You are why this card is called the captor and not the captive. What have we been doing to falsely imprison logic, reason, free speech, higher ideals, morality, ethics, and the flourishing of the humanities? We are not Hypatia. We are the people who played our own roles in causing the capture of Hypatia. Here, she is a metaphor. And yet this imagination of her shows a point in time when there is still a window of opportunity to change our minds, to interfere. This card in Crowley's Thoth is the Lord of Interference, and to save her, we can still free her from her bindings. It is not too late. In her time, Hypatia was also seen as a spiritual teacher, lecturing to the public on Neoplatonism. This illustration is an allegory for ambitions suppressing spirituality, i.e., the relation between the idol of Jupiter and the bound Hypatia. Also note the total lunar eclipse depicted here, i.e., it's a full moon. During a full moon, the Earth is sandwiched in between the sun and moon, signifying the father and the mother, masculine and feminine, reason and intuition, deduction and induction. When the Eight of Swords appears in a reading, there has been undue interference in the seeker's path. Think on the story of Hypatia, what she represents as a gifted philosopher, spiritualist, and teacher, how she got into her carriage that fateful day, and the people descended on her, ultimately causing her gruesome end. Yet here we have the opportunity to overthrow the cycle of history, to change our ways so that we are not part of the mob that murders Hypatia. At present, there may be an imbalance between your intellect and your soul, i.e., ambitions versus your spiritual path, that which will better lead you to your salvation. Another way of interpreting this card when it shows up is as logic suppressing emotion. This is reason, ideologies, and verbalized thought holding intuition captive, not allowing intuition to keep reason and ideologies in check. Crowley's Book of Thoth gave a reference to mice and men for the Eight of Swords. Looking to Steinbeck's book titled with the same name, themes here are the evils of oppression, aggressions of those in a superior position to hurt those who are helpless and meek, and themes of fate, isolation, and also the prophecies delivered through dreams. In matters of the heart, the Eight of Swords denotes entrapment and not having done enough to achieve your aspiration. This is falling short of what it would have taken to attain success. In matters of work, this will be a difficult card to acknowledge, because there is no clear-cut, easy solution to the problem. But take heart. If you would believe Waite's interpretation of this card, the Eight of Swords predicts that this condition is temporary. In general, the Eight of Swords prognosticates crisis, but the setbacks are transitory. Waite's interpretation continues into darker terrain, however. Ill-dignified, it suggests unforeseen challenges, disaster, predetermined liability, and bad actors attempting to cause you harm, in particular through words, i.e., slander, defamation, or malicious statements being made. Contemporary interpretations for the Eight of Swords typically explain the swords surrounding a bound figure as internal fears that are disempowering the current. While Benny Bell still wanted the SKT Eight of Swords to convey that, she also wanted to validate those fears. There's usually a very good reason for why that fear is there. Thus, even if you read this card as yourself being Hypatia, and therefore the captive under the control of the spirit of the captor, this card validates the current's fears. Your sense of disempowerment is not a figment of the imagination. It is very real. Something systemic, something bigger than ourselves, or even something produced by a long chain of karmic events, is why we are now in the throes of an Eight of Swords moment. There are very concrete, legitimate reasons why you feel trapped. There is no easy out here. It's not all in your head. You don't just manifest an escape route with positive thinking. You do not have a dysmorphic view of your circumstances. You're clear-headed and intelligent. You know exactly what's going on, and the Eight of Swords appearing to you is confirmation that you have a legitimate basis for your fears. And yet I hope this card is not pure doom and gloom. Just as we read the RWS Eight of Swords, there is a way out. You are the reimagined Hypatia, and you can still cut loose the threads of fate. It is not too late to get yourself out of your hostile situation. It is important to work with the Eight of Swords as an allegory. It's so easy to identify ourselves as Hypatia, adopting a victim mentality. The world is unjustifiably out to get us because they envy how extraordinary we are. We don't ever imagine ourselves as Cyril, the misguided bishop who envied Hypatia's political prestige and social influence, and therefore accused her of witchcraft and satanic practices. We, the onlooker, are the ones holding Hypatia and everything she represents captive. We are not the victim. We are the perpetrator. Hypatia, as depicted here, is demanding that you look her in her eyes as you suppress your own spiritual ideals in preference for pursuing your ambitions. Card number 4. For the I Ching this week, we have Guai. After a long period of tension, there will be a breakthrough. Negotiate a barter with heaven and send the prayer upward. With full faith in the divine, your creative ideas will materialize, the prayer answered, though you will honor your word. Be careful, as there may be risks ahead. Your interests are not the only ones at stake in the endeavor. Be sure to warn others about the risks involved, but do not yet reveal your intentions. No gains from reactive combat. The solution will be a different path than the one initially conceived. Be resolute and decisive. Wow. Okay. I know that I got a little long-winded this week. Spirit is really trying to reiterate to you that the time has come to face your fears head-on. Make a decision and stick with it. Don't tell anyone what your plans are. Keep them to yourself and put them into action. If you don't take decisive action, it could end up badly for you. Suck it up, Buttercup. You're not the victim here. In reality, you are the one holding yourself back. Let go. Spread your wings and fly. Beautiful things are about to happen for you. You've got this. I believe in you. I hope that this reading has helped you and will help lead you and guide you throughout the week. If you do feel that it has helped you and that it will help someone else, please feel free to share this video. Sharing is caring. And if you would like a more in-depth and personal reading, you can go to my website at www.conjureknits.com and click on the link at the top of the page that says Book a Reading. I hope you all have a very beautiful and amazing week. Love you bunches. Shalom.